Good evening and welcome. Will the Modi-Xi Bonhomie in Mamallapuram help repair the fractured ties between India and China? That's my top focus on the Newstrack tonight. China's President Xi landed in Chennai to a rousing welcome by local Chinese nationals. Through the evening, he was at a cultural extravaganza, personally escorted by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The atmospherics were fantastic, but will this high-voltage photo opportunity yield something substantive? On multiple occasions in the recent past, Beijing has poked India right in the eye, hit where it hurts hard. Will all this bonhomie help bring India-China ties back on track? That's what we look at tonight. Geeta Mohan, our Foreign Affairs Editor, and Gaurav Sawant in Mamallapuram file our lead story tonight.
The welcome at the Chennai airport for Xi Jinping signaled the significance that the Chinese president's visit holds for India. President Xi got a glimpse of rich Tamil Nadu traditions even as he stepped off the plane. Hundreds of people waved India-China flags amid drumbeats as the Chinese president's cavalcade left Chennai airport. A few hours later, Prime Minister Modi added to the traditional flavour by wearing a veshti as he received Xi in Mamallapuram. Modi then gave his guest a personal tour of the iconic monuments of this heritage seaside town. Modi was seen explaining to the president the historicity of the sites in the coastal town, which has had ties with China for more than 1,700 years. After the walkabout, both leaders sat down for a candid chat while sipping coconut water. Without any aids and just translators, the interaction between both leaders underlined the bonhomie between Modi and Xi. After the brief conversation, Modi and President Xi walked past the Panch Rathas and headed to the impressive shore temple as the sun set over the Bay of Bengal. The performance at the decked-up shore temple gave Xi Jinping yet another taste of the arts of South India before the two leaders sat down for dinner. Diverse South Indian cuisines were on platter at the special dinner hosted by Prime Minister Modi in honor of the Chinese president. Friday's bonhomie between Modi and Xi amid the cultural setting was an ideal opening for the two leaders, who will sit down on Saturday to serious issues ranging from terror to trade. With Gaurav Sawant, Shalini Lobo and Geeta Mohan. Bureau Report, India Today.
On the Newstrack showdown tonight, will the Modi-Xi bonhomie help bring back on track ties between India and China? Will all this atmospherics account to anything substantive? Joining us on this broadcast, I want to welcome first Raj Chingappa, Editorial Director for Publishing for the India Today Group. With us also from Chennai is our man on the ground, Gaurav Sawant, leading our strategic affairs coverage. for a perspective on how the salutes and the spies and those who've been in the intelligence agencies view what's happening between India and China. We're joined by Jaidev Ranade. For a military perspective, I'm joined by Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, commanded the Indian infantry back in the day. Brahma Chalani is a leading strategic affairs expert. And we've got with us on this broadcast, last but not least, Sambit Patra, representing the Bharatiya Janata Party, and Vijay Nambiar is India's former ambassador to China. I want to go to Gaurav Sawant first. On the ground, you saw all the handshakes, like President Trump, Modi lifting the hand of President Xi as well. That's becoming a bit of a trademark. But everyone who's watching will wonder only this: will this cultural extravaganza account for anything substantive in the end? What's coming out of this Nach Gana?
So the Nach Gana is happening. That itself is big. That's point one. The fact that Chinese President Xi Jinping has come to Chennai for the second informal summit after Wuhan, that's again a big thing. It's not premier to premier, but it's head of state and head of government here. That's being seen as a big thing. What will it ultimately lead to? Will it actually lead to, remember Chinese President Xi Jinping had said for 21st century to be Asia's century, India and China need to move forward together. It remains to be seen, but optics are all right. And China also realizes that it needs the Indian market. So will India be able to leverage it, and how much will India be able to leverage it remains the question, Rahul. At the same time, sources in the Ministry of External Affairs insist that we should not look at it only through the Pakistan prism, because China will stand with Pakistan. That is China's commitment to Pakistan. The way China says that China does not like us being very friendly with the United States of America, but they live with it. We should live with China being friendly with Pakistan.
You're saying, Raj Chingappa, that just his presence is a big deal. I'm not sure. Because we had the Wuhan summit where we saw similar bonhomie and atmospherics, and it was supposed to be informal, it would bring ties back on track. Every single opportunity that they've had since then to decide whether China would side with India, they have chosen to side with our opponents. So it's well and good to say that we will be great powers together. China wants to be a great power and they're constantly trying to derail the India story.
Well, of course, I agree with Gaurav that Xi's presence, I mean, just the optics today was wonderful to view. Modi in his veshti and the Angavastram, which he found very difficult to handle, and Xi there looking very relaxed. I think that communicated a lot more. It's very important. I mean, this must be the only relationship where Xi actually comes down, of China, where Xi actually comes down and meets Modi one-on-one. I don't see many other countries where they do this kind of...
What's it accounting to?
No.
What are we getting at the end of it? Whether it's trade, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's on Kashmir, on every single thing, they're constantly poking you in the eye and standing and holding your hand up and taking a photo opportunity.
Certainly the Wuhan spirit, as we call it, in April last year, China has violated most of that. And we have seen in the reactions to Kashmir, taking us to the UN Security Council, the way they drag the feet over Jaish-e-Mohammed. But the fact that these two are talking itself, I think, is significant. And it conveys its own sort of message. There are issues that you need to tackle head on, whether it is border...
We haven't, Sambit Patra, been able to resolve any one of those issues. And every single time, the question's been asked about whether China will side with India, whether it is actually a friend. You can't say, oh, we are great powers, we are great friends, we will ride the 21st century together, and every opportunity you come and trip us over. I mean, what sort of friendship is this, where the other guy is always trying to stab you and you're saying, oh, he's my great friend?
See, Rahul, as far as diplomacy is concerned, though I'm the lesser of the great crowd that you have today, I mean, the people who have been discussing in various news channels, but I would say that diplomacy is an ongoing process. It is never a all or none phenomena that you start today and end it day after tomorrow. And moreover, diplomacy is not a shop that you measure the outcome in ounces, you measure the outcome in kgs and grams, that thing that we have taken home. Secondly, and most importantly, as far as India and China is concerned, well, we are the two most top economic powers of Asia. We are the topmost geopolitical powers of this region. So, of course, our coming together is something which the whole world is observing. Thirdly, as to what we will get. Well, look, as far as what we will get, there was only a few months ago, I believe, Masood Azhar, once, in fact, China had not agreed. Number of times China had not agreed to the fact that they would send the signal for for Masood Azhar being a terrorist, but finally they had to bow down. I mean, Masood Azhar is now an internationally declared terrorist, thanks to the continued effort. Secondly, last time we had the Wuhan informal meeting. In this, we saw that the standoff before that, the 73-day standoff, as far as India and Doklam is concerned, India emerged stronger. India emerged as a country which was not going to compromise its sovereignty. So gradually, India is placing itself in the global arena where we had never been before. As far as what you call quote unquote as Nach Gana, I see that as a cultural integrity of the country, and I would as a layman put it as a colorful way of diplomacy rather than the yesteryear's colorless way of diplomacy, Raspur way of diplomacy in Samarikta rather than Niras way of
cultural extravaganza is indeed a big deal. There'll be huge tourism coming into Mamallapuram after everyone's had a beautiful opportunity to look at these beautiful temples live on television, and that really is a big positive. But, you know, when people in government say just the fact that she is here, that by itself is a big deal. Don't look at what China is saying on Kashmir and on Pakistan. That is unavoidable. People will wonder, what are we getting out of it? Whether it is trade, whether it is any of our key concerns, if none of those are being addressed, we're talking about a Wuhan spirit, but we're still wondering what that spirit defines and epitomizes. Brahmachalan.
You raise a very pertinent question. Ever since Modi came to office in 2014, he's been trying unsuccessfully to reset ties with China. His first attempt in 2014 backfired with President Xi, bringing with him a deep Chinese incursion into Ladakh. Despite Doklam, Modi persisted, with Wuhan representing Modi's Reset 2.0. Mamallapuram should be seen as Modi's Reset 3.0. Will Modi be luckier this time? That's the question. We should not forget that China takes the long view and stays its course doggedly. It will not reduce its hostility towards India because of Indian overtures. For example, it will continue to oppose India's membership in the Nuclear Suppliers Club. This is just one example of many. We talk about Pakistan. Pakistan is a more fundamental issue. But even on a minor issue, like the Nuclear Suppliers Group membership, Beijing will not relent, nor will Beijing relent on its military pressure that it applies directly on India. In fact, since Wuhan, China has stepped up its military buildup along the Himalayan border with India, and it's been conducting live fire combat drills. Does that
Those are very important points, and I want Vijay Nambiar to respond to that. Is there an urgent need for some realism in this relationship? We keep trying to tell people who are watching this broadcast that, you know, India and China are great friends, that we are marching into the 21st century. They are trying to trip us over. And yet somehow, instead of acknowledging that reality, we send out a message. You know, Brahma Chalani talks about Reset 3.0. The question needs to be asked, what came out of attempt 1.0? What came out of attempt 2.0? What's the point of attempt 3.0?
I think the realities of on both sides, there is a sufficient understanding of the realities. This, despite all the cynics that however much you may be cynical, the gravity of the occasion is sinking in when the meeting is taking place now in Mamallapuram. I think it's very important, the most important, this is one of the more important relationships in the world. And I think what is important is stability in the relations between India and China, despite the fact that there are known differences between the two. And I don't think the Indian side has either changed or buckled under any kind of pressure. We have not changed our position on many of the things. We went on with the meetings in New York, even of the Quad and other things. We have not changed very much. I don't think that there is a certain sense of realism on both sides, and I think we are willing to look at keeping the relationships stable. And I think there is a greater symbolism involved also in the meetings being held in Mamallapuram. There is a changing dynamics in the world around. There are new norms which the world is now getting to. We have to both realize that as big countries, we have our interests and we have to stand by our interests. And I think it is a recognition of this reality that is represented here in Mamallapuram at the meetings between
General Shankar
Xi
Prasad,
Jinping and the very fact that
do you accept that this meeting itself is a very big deal, or would you want to know what comes out of these informal talks? That all of this is great. We're very happy to have President Xi here, but he has to give something to India. India is constantly wanting to give to China. At some point in time, the question needs to be asked, what is India getting out of it? And Brahma Chelani makes a very important point. Post Doklam, China has actually substantially enhanced its military presence along India's border.
Rahul, you're absolutely right. Entertainment is one side, which is now seems to be over tonight. Tomorrow morning, the hard talks begin. We have serious issues to discuss. We have the issues of economic imbalance between China and India. We have serious problems of border management. We have serious issues of increment of force levels of Chinese on the northern border. We have serious issues of how China represents the case of Pakistan all over and supports them. These are not easy issues, but the important point is, which we have to see, and it's appreciated, we must appreciate it, that India's foreign policy today is in a position of kind of maneuvering between big powers like America, like Russia, and like China. All of them have got interest in India, and we have interest in them. There is so much of interdependence today, particularly in the field of economy. Therefore, I would put number one point of agenda for Mr. President of China is to do something about economic issues in India. They have huge investments here. They have huge investments in Pakistan as well. But Pakistan investment in the corridor is not paying them much dividends. They are making enough money, over $60 billion from India. They want to come in 5G here. And the American companies are shifting out of China. So Chinese economy is really suffering today. The stock markets are down by more than 30%. We have to leverage our position. We have to leverage our position of economic strength as equal partners. Some of my previous speakers have made this point, but we have to go on to the border issue.
Do you accept this point that India has been giving too much in the hope of preventing confrontation? India has been way too lenient, not extracting a good deal. Look at trade. We are exporting raw materials to China. We're importing from them manufactured goods. That's what happened at the time of the East India Company with the British colonial empire. And that's the nature of our trade with China right now. And somewhere we need to inject some hard dose of realism into this relationship.
I quite agree. Let me add a couple of points here. Firstly, I think we have to take a wider perspective of how our relationship with China is. And I would say that in addition to the points already made, what we have done, there are three things that stand out. One is that China's overt support to Pakistan has very clear implications of strengthening or reinforcement of its territorial claims on India, particularly in this current context on J&K. China's reiteration of its claims on the entire now union territory of Ladakh is something that is a case in point we need to keep in mind. So it's not just a question of China supporting Pakistan, it has direct implications for us. Secondly, when China has stood in our way, has opposed us, I think it was Brahma who spoke about nuclear suppliers group. It has been opposing our entry into the UN Security Council for a number of years. It comes from its old principle of there can be only one tiger on top of a hill, which is China. They don't want any other Asian country to come to their level and sit on the global high table. So we have to keep that in mind. But on our side, I would credit the Modi government and Prime Minister Modi with trying to balance out his relations and trying to improve his ties with the US, with Russia, while at the same time persisting with the Chinese and making it clear to them that we all are also fashioning our alternatives and we are going to stand firm on issues that matter to us, like Chumar, like Doklam, where I must say it was after a long time that we really took a stand. So I think as far as economics is concerned, we are going to insist on reduction of the trade deficit. which is working against us. I hope we insist on controlling the hollowing out of our economy that is taking place, and I use the term hollowing out, and we take a firm stance on allowing certain Chinese products which can harm our national security. I'm sure that's very clear.
What we also saw
as to
Prime
what it
Minister
means.
Modi
but
do
we have
today
to take these
is
steps,
a
and I think
big
it will
Tamil
be done.
outreach. He came in that Veshti and the Angvastram, dressed for the occasion, just on point in the way that you'd be if you were visiting these lovely temples in Mamallapuram. Part of this also to counter the sentiment that had been building in Tamil Nadu, which was an anti-BJP, anti-centre, pro-South, pro-Tamil Nadu sentiment. There was a hashtag which opponents of the government tried to float, which said, "Go back Modi," while the government came out and said that this is a Chinese propaganda. But the Prime Minister, in his outreach, tried to reach out, not just to President Xi, the rest of India, but most importantly to the people who are watching in the state of Tamil Nadu.
While Prime Minister Narendra Modi was charming Tamil Nadu in Veshti and Mellamunda, a war was being waged on social media. Hashtag Go Back Modi and TN Welcomes Modi were among top trends in India. It all started with hashtag Go Back Modi, with thousands of tweets every hour on Friday. The tweets were directed against Modi's Tamil Nadu visit. One user even tweeted an undated speech of Prime Minister Modi, where he takes a jibe at the Manmohan Singh government for not taking on China over issues like Doklam, Arunachal and Aksai Chin.
भारत के विदेश मंत्री चाइना गए और चाइना में जाकर के चाइना के साथ उनकी इन जो हरकतों के खिलाफ आवाज उठानी चाहिए थी, लाल आंख कर करके चाइना को समझाना चाहिए था.
Sources in the government claimed most Twitter handles promoting hashtag Go Back Modi were from Pakistan. They released a list of Pakistan-based Twitter handles who tweeted with the anti-Modi hashtag. The supporters of Prime Minister Modi also got into action. They tweeted with the hashtag TN Welcomes Modi. At the forefront was BJP's Tamil Nadu official Twitter handle, invoking the historic importance of Mamallapuram. But notwithstanding what was happening online, Mamallapuram accorded a warm welcome to both Prime Minister Modi and President Xi. Bureau Report, India Today.
I'm joined now by Nikhil Rampal from our Data Intelligence Unit. You've been tracking the geolocations of these hashtags. The Indian government says that a lot of them are Pakistani handles trying to make trend the hashtag Go Back Modi.
Rahul, the Pakistani trend, we have not verified as such, but the news came from 2019 March, when Modi was visiting Tamil Nadu at that time. But this time, when Modi is visiting for this diplomatic summit, the Modi-Xi meet, 70% of the tweets originated from India. And even if when you check the state-wise location maps, then of them 60% came from Tamil Nadu only.
But I can fake that also. I can on Twitter,
yes. So
if
Twitter
I'm running a sophisticated operation,
I want to show you an example.
Make it seem as if it's coming from Tamil Nadu, but this could be the ISI doing it as well.
Like you can see this tweet, like I just tweeted from Karachi, and this Twitter location is showing me in Karachi right now. So when the Twitter gets my data, I just use a third-party fake GPS
So last
app.
time they did it, they were exposed because the locations very quickly traced back to Pakistan.
Exactly.
This time they're using more sophisticated proxies to make it seem as if it's coming from Tamil Nadu.
It could be. It could be. See, Twitter locations can be faked very easily. Twitter trends can be manipulated from these locations because these are opt-in services. So I fake a GPS, I put my location in Karachi, I can right now tweet from New York, Chile, Antigua, wherever I want to. So that's how trends can be manipulated.
Thanks, Nikhil. But this is quite unfortunate, right? You have a problem with Modi's China policy. You don't like what he's doing, which he criticized that. Putting up this kind of trend, Modi go back at a time when he's representing India as the head of our government. And this kind of politics is best avoided.
Well, I don't think we should take too much notice, because I think the entire occasion that she coming down there to Mamallapuram, the optics that is there, is, drowns all these other noises that are coming. And I think we need to focus, as our panelists have been saying, on what are the big issues these two countries are dealing with. Clearly, if you look at it and you compare Wuhan, if you look at Xi coming in, he comes in with certain pushbacks on various fronts. There's a major trade battle that he's facing with US. There's problems in Hong Kong. And the Chinese economy is also down. Now, India has very strong political, given the fact that Modi is won with his phenomenal majority, he comes with great political strength, but of course our economy is weakening. Now, we need, as I think I heard Ambassador Nambiar saying, how do you manage this relationship? Obviously, in this meeting, you're not going to come out with important breakthroughs in this. There are certain issues that have bedeviled the relationship. The trade has been one of the big issues.
Okay, so I want to play devil's advocate for a moment and ask this question. Has Xi's China been taking India for a ride? They're talking, and I want to put this question first to Jaidev Ranade. They're talking about a Wuhan spirit. They're talking about two great Asian powers. But you have to look at, real action, not talk. And if you look at every single thing the Chinese government has done since Wuhan or before that, Prime Minister Modi, to his credit, has tried to make friends with China. The Chinese haven't reciprocated, leading to my question, are they trying to take us for a ride by stringing us along?
They've been pushing us around for a long time, so it takes a little time to get rid of that mindset. And I think they are seeing that now. In the last 2 years or so, while they are relentless in the pursuit of their objectives, we have also been persisting in adhering to the line that we have taken. So they're not getting any joy there, they're not getting any success there. And I think that is beginning to now register with the establishment in Beijing, with Xi Jinping and his people, but they have decided on a certain line. They have to be, it has to get through to them that that's not going to work here. And I think with the new geopolitical configuration, it is beginning to have some results. The recent setbacks that China received at the UNSC and while supporting Pakistan on other issues are one indicator. The setback that they received, and I'm using that word advisedly, at Doklam was another indicator, and the fact that we are now talking and they are also willing to talk, I think is a positive sign. Let's see where it goes. When the rubber hits the road, that's when we'll really know.
Brahmachalani, has China under Xi been trying to take India for a ride?
It's been trying to take all its neighbors for a ride. Look at what China has achieved in the South China Sea. In just 5 years, without firing a single shot, it has changed the geopolitics of South China Sea by building 7 artificial islands and turning them into forward military outposts. So it has militarized the South China Sea, it has territorially expanded its control over the South China Sea without firing a single shot. This is the same strategy they are adopting vis-a-vis India. Without firing a single shot, they're trying to change the Himalayan frontier, inch by inch, meter by meter, mile by mile. This is what they're trying to do in Ladakh. In Ladakh, through intimidation, they are scaring away people living in border villages. Once you get a border area depopulated, it makes it so much easier for the enemy to walk in. And therefore, the creation of Ladakh as a separate union territory allows the central government in New Delhi to ensure that such depopulation does not happen.
So let Sambit Patra respond to the position that's being taken that China is taking India for a ride. There is need for greater realism. There's been a massive military build-up all along the India-China border post-Doklam, especially in the area of Doklam. Live firing drills have been carried out, which wasn't the case earlier. And a lot of Chinese military equipment has actually been given over for a pittance to Pakistan. They're arming our enemy. It's happening under our nose. Instead of acknowledging that this is a problem that we need to confront and deal with, we're making it seem as if, oh, all is great, they're all singing, dancing, having a great time. Sambit Patra, is there a need for greater realism?
Now, let me borrow a phrase out of Mr. Arun Jaitley's book. May he rest in peace. He's not with us. But if you would remember, during Doklam, when Mr. Jaitley was asked about the same, he said that India of 1962 is quite different what it is today. So please, let's not compare India of 1962 with India of 2019. And let me tell you, well, China might have complained to India about Ladakh being changed into a union territory, but India said it's our internal matter, you should not poke your nose into it. Similarly, there was a complaint by China as far as India's military exercise going on in Arunachal Pradesh. India said it is India's operational issue. We will continue with it. In fact, if there is a build-up of China along the borders, a line of actual control, it is not as if India is not doing the same. In fact, India has built up great deal of infrastructure along the Arunachal Pradesh. We have good roads today. We have our own military exercise going on there. India is not a relenting country today. Well, as far as optics of the diplomacy is concerned, well, this is what the civilized world should do. We should not relinquish our rights, but we should be on the same platform as equals and discuss the issue. I would conclude by saying it's not just conflict that India and China have. Apart from conflict, we have certain issues of compatibility like Buddhism, culture. We have certain issues of cooperation like trade. We have certain issues in which we can have competitiveness like economy. We have certain issues in which we can be creative. So all these C's have to be taken into account. It's not just one C, that is conflict, that India has to think about.
So I want to just flip this debate on its head in the end and ask my last question, which is this. Is the avoidance of escalation of confrontation India's best strategy at this moment when it comes to dealing with China? I'll put that question to Vijay Nambiar and I'll explain why I'm asking this question. If you take a hardcore look at the capabilities, economic capabilities, military capabilities, diplomatic capabilities of India and China, China is way ahead of us. That's the reality. So instead of constantly trying to stare them in the eye, look them down, is Modi actually doing the smartest thing by stringing China along, realizing that there are differences, drawing a red line, pushing back when something like Doklam happens, but not allowing for every little rupture, every little disagreement to turn into a major escalation? Is that really, for the next 15-20 years, as we build our own capacities, Ambassador Nambiar, India's best approach?
I think it is important. I think what Brahma has said about the fait accompli policies of setting up fait accomplis in the South China Seas, that's not happening in this side. We are increasingly making ourselves ready to prevent these kind of fait accomplis on the border, on situations. Of course, with Pakistan, we are having our own ways of coping with the Pak-China relationship, and I think 370 is one of these sort of responses. I think the fact that on the one hand we are prepared to cope with these things and take our own countermeasures with full confidence and with a determination which is clear to the other side. At the same time, we are making it clear that we seek stability in our relationship. The stability is the most important thing, I think.
Jaidev Ranade, would you accept this? That yes, on the outside, it looks as if India is not being aggressive enough, not taking action against China, even though China is trying to roughshod over India. But in reality, it might be the smartest thing to do. Keep your head down, build your capacities. You've already done 370. You've already got a big feud going with Pakistan. You light up your border on the other side of the Himalayas. That's not smart strategy. So Modi may appear as if he's not doing enough, but sometimes not wanting to fight is the smartest way to fight.
Yes, in the overall context, and I think that is what we are doing, which is the right thing to do. We are trying to keep the border cool so that we can build up our strength, build up our capacities in many areas before we really tackle the major issues. But let me make two quick subsidiary points, Rahul. The first, you did say about Modi pulling back on Doklam. That did not happen. In fact, Doklam, we stood firm, and we were not the first to blink. So let me just set that on record. There is enough data to show who blinked first and who wanted finally to have a negotiated withdrawal. The third point was, as you said, about keeping our powder dry and whether Modi is doing the right thing. On 370, it was not just Pakistan. China also came into the rap when we spoke about restoring, it being an internal problem and the borders of J&K. We all know where the borders are. So I think he is being firm where it counts. He is keeping his options open, and at the same time he is looking for a quiet border, which is a smart strategy.
Rachingappa, do you agree? Because the flip of this would be, had this been a Manmohan Singh government and had this been the Congress's approach, Sambit Patra and the others would have been dancing on their heads saying that this is a weak government, ye kuch nahi karte, hamari sarkar hoti, would have stared the dragon, this is a weak government. So now when the shoe's on the other foot, the same question will be asked of them. So is it a big failure for, what would be a big failure for Manmohan, master stroke for Modi?
You know, I mean, people will argue that, you know, what is, compared to form, what is the substance? I mean, that's what they're going to ask. But let's not forget that if India was not important enough for China, why would she pay a visit? There is so much acrimony between the two countries. Clearly, China needs something from India. We need to understand that.
But they're always needing something from us. What about, you know, it's a relationship, right?
No, let me just finish. I think there was, the way Modi has handled, Prime Minister Modi has handled this, is that even as China upped the ante on Kashmir, we went ahead by upgrading on the Quad, the relationship with Australia, you know, Japan, USA and India. We never wanted it to be at the foreign secretary level. But that was a clear signal to China that, look, if you start acting up on this, we have our options. We went ahead with Vijay, the, you know, military exercises, though very, you know, as the summit neared, we both agreed that we should cease and desist and not sort of have too much of this acrimony as the
Sambit Patra, Manish Tiwari of the Congress was asking, you know, if they are constantly talking about human rights violations by the Indian government in Kashmir, why are we not talking about pro-democracy protesters agitating on the streets in Hong Kong? Why are we not talking about human rights violations in Xinjiang? Why are we not talking about how Uyghur Muslims are put in detention camps by the millions? Why is India not asking some of these questions to China? Given the kind of questions they're asking of us, Sambit Patra, what's the response?
See, Rahul, I would not know in an informal summit as to what kind of questions will be asked by either side. So let that rest. But to your question that we would have danced and shouted down the Congress party had it been Manmohan Singh, I would say no. In the past, there was a bipartisan understanding. Any time a dignitary came to our country or Prime Minister of India went to another country, we never criticized the Prime Minister or the President then. Secondly, I would like to conclude that there was a time, you have fine guests over here, they would agree that the Indian Prime Minister was once rebuked by the Chinese Premier that you should not visit Arunachal Pradesh. In fact, a planned program was cancelled. Today, that's not the case with India. India is assertive about the fact that no, we are not going to cancel any of our programs just because China does not feel comfortable about it. So it's a changed, assertive India today, and we have equal friends today meeting. It's not an unequal partnership that we are seeing today.
So final words, I want to go to Brahma Chalani first. We've seen the song and the dance, the cultural extravaganza. This was the softer side. Tomorrow we'll see, we're being told separate statements, not one joint statement, but separate statements from India and China, like was the case in Wuhan. What do you imagine will emerge? Will there be something substantive at the end of it? Brahma Chalani.
I think we need to pay close attention to what the two statements will say, because in Wuhan, both sides issued separate statements. And the Indian media ran with the story that Modi and Xi had agreed to issue a strategic directive, a strategic guidance to their militaries to avert border friction. Now, this claim in the Indian statement was not reflected in the Chinese statement. And yet, that was the main Indian takeaway. I think we need to pay close attention to the divergences that emerge from the two separate statements that will be released tomorrow. They will tell us a lot. And whatever claims the Indians make, they should be seen in the context of what the Chinese say or don't say. We should not just assume that whatever we are saying, the Chinese have agreed to. The two statements will not be in sync. There will be important differences and nuances, even on substance. And so therefore, we need to not go with the hype.
I'll let that be the last word. Hard dose of realism from Brahma Chalani. Look at both statements. Don't just go by what our Ministry of External Affairs says. What's as important, if not more important, is what does the dragon think that happened? You can have different outcomes and thoughts on how that meeting went. This is India's toughest foreign policy relationship. Make absolutely no mistake about it. Dealing with Trump, dealing with Imran Khan, Bajwa, much easier than dealing with the dragon. We're keeping a very close eye. We'll be back early in the morning tracking the Modi-Xi visit. For the time being, to all my guests, Vijay Nambiar, Brahma Chalani, Raj Chingappa, Jaidev Ranade, General Shankar Prasad, thank you very much for joining us. Sambit Patra as well. We're slipping into a break. More on the other side when we come back. Stay with us. Thank you.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.